Hello and welcome to The Insider, a show designed to clue you into the biggest news, events and announcements inside the video games industry, discussing with you some things you may know, some things you may not, and the glue that holds it all together is a little bit of my own opinion. My name is Paul James, thank you very much for watching, and let's get for the episode.
Oh my. What could have brought you here?
No Bayonetta 3, no Metroid Prime 4, no Luigi's Mansion 3, no Animal Crossing, and no Pokemon. No worries. Nintendo has put on one of the best Nintendo Directs that potentially we've ever seen, and it happened just 24 hours ago. In this week's episode of The Insider, I'm going to break down everything you need to know, talk about it in a bit more detail, and then explain to you some of my theories about what it all means, ramifications-wise, for the remainder of this year and beyond. Now, I'm not even going to be shy about this. There was an exhaustive list of things that were announced, revealed, teased, detailed during this Nintendo Direct. It was about 35 minutes long and lots of games were shown. I've got a list scribbled down on a few sticky notes here that I'm going to go through with you, and we're going to discuss some of those games, some in more detail than others, and just detail a few little thoughts and ideas about what it might mean going forward. So we've got Captain Toad. Captain Toad Treasure Tracker was a fantastic game that came out only a few months ago really for the Switch when you think about it, but obviously it was a Wii U game beforehand. It's getting some new DLC. That's awesome. Box Boy and Box Girl, so the spin-off sequel to Box Boy and its sequels that were present on the 3DS. That franchise is finally coming over to the Switch. It's a cool little simple platformer. It's one worth keeping your eye on. Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, it's not doing much for me. It's the sort of game that I think I'll pick up only if it gets some surprising critical acclaim. It seems pretty simple. It looks to fall in line with what we've seen from past Marvel Ultimate Alliance games. Nothing especially revolutionary, but it's going to be great for that audience it's intended for. We got some new details, some very small details, and a tease for much more about Smash Brothers DLC. So we've obviously got Joker already from Persona 5. There's going to be more coming down the line. There was this big 3.0 update they were teasing. We expect to probably hear a fair bit more about that soon, maybe a dedicated Smash Direct, but who knows, they don't really tell us all that much. Bloodstained. We obviously got the first game, the kind of prequel game to that on the PS4, the Switch, Xbox, everything last year. The main game is now targeting a winter release. Get excited for that, Metroidvania fans. Here's one that didn't do it for me at all. Disney Tum Tum. I'm not exactly sure about the pronunciation. I'd have to go back and watch the video there. Really quirky puzzle game that just doesn't ring my bell at all. But if it's for you, congratulations, good. Here's one that really impressed me. Starlink is getting some new DLC. Starlink, the Toys to Life game released by Ubisoft last year across multiple platforms, but had some exclusive Star Fox related DLC for the content, for the Switch version, is now getting more in the form of some DLC that looks at Peppy, Slippy, Falco, and others from Star Fox's team and that Star Fox universe. It's DLC that's exclusive to the Switch. That's awesome, and they're supporting that game further. It's making me really think about buying that game. I didn't in the first place because I didn't want more Toys to Life sort of content. But it's becoming harder and harder to ignore because I'm essentially getting a Star Fox game here. We've got Rune Factory 4. That game's being ported to the Switch, but then they followed up with the announcement that Rune Factory 5 is also going to be coming to the platform. That's great news for people who are a fan of that franchise. It's kind of Harvest Moon-y, Stardew Valley. There's lots of awesome aspects there with some deep RPG systems as well. It's one to look forward to if you're a fan of the franchise or the genre. We've got Oninaki, which comes from Tokyo RPG Factory, those responsible most recently for Lost Sphear, but a lot of kind of throwback RPGs. This is one to watch. The game's looking fantastic. It looks to have a slightly more modern edge to it, so it seems to be ignoring that kind of Super Nintendo era route, but it's looking great. They've got a decent pedigree, they've got some form now. I can't wait to see what this game's about, and presumably it's coming to other platforms as well. We will wrap this little segment up by talking about Yoshi, so Yoshi's Crafted World, and Daemon Cross Machina, both of which are getting demos. They're available now, so if you've got a Switch, go out and pick those up. I'll report back to you via some Player 2 plays and those sort of things as to how those are going. It's something to keep an eye on. Yoshi's not far away. Daemon Cross Machina is probably still a few months, maybe even a year away, but it's a cool premise. Keep an eye on both those demos and go and check them out. And finally, for this segment, is Fire Emblem Three Houses. This is the one that they kind of outlined before the event that they were going to talk about, and they gave it a good 5 or 6 minute chunk. We saw some cinematics, we saw some gameplay, and what we got to see was the thing that we've been most waiting for, which was a July 26th release date. The release date being the key thing here. It's not far away, get excited Fire Emblem fans, and it's one of the first cogs falling into place for the remainder of the year, and we're going to talk more about some of those things coming up shortly. Continuing to detail some of these smaller titles here, things continued with Tetris 99, which was... it's a Tetris Battle Royale game. So you're competing against 99 other people till there's one person left standing in Tetris. It's a crazy idea, it's available now on the Switch, it's free on the Switch, and there's lots of people in my games media circles that are already playing it and are raving about it. And the thing that blows my mind the most, it's available on the Switch, and not the Vita, the PSP. So if you're a PSP person, go ahead and pick it up. Why not? Just for a laugh. You might play with 2 other people. There's Dead by Daylight, which, well, look, we saw some footage, but it's Nintendo, so they didn't show any blood or any blood being spilt at all. It's going to be a violent game. We know what that game is. It's coming soon. Deltarune, which comes from Toby Fox, the person responsible for the very, very quirky Undertale. I was not a fan of Undertale, but I understand it has a massive community. There's lots of people who are big on that kind of style of humour that he went for, and the first episode is free on the Switch beginning the end of this month. Future episodes won't be free, but the first one's accessible. So if you're a fan of those games, if you're a fan of Undertale and what Toby Fox is doing and what it looks like we're getting in the Deltarune here, then it's one to look forward to. Then we'll go a little bit quickfire here because this is how Nintendo presented them. We're getting Grid Autosport, Hellblade, Mortal Kombat 11, and we obviously knew about Mortal Kombat 11, we've now got an April 23rd release date. Unravel 2, Assassin's Creed 3, including the Liberation Vita game that's being ported and brought over courtesy of a definitive edition a while back. We got release dates for Final Fantasy VII, the port, which is coming on March 26th. Final Fantasy IX, the best Final Fantasy game, the best game ever made. It's available now on the Switch, and consequently the Xbox One. And Chocobo's Mystery Dungeon, which is also coming on March 20th. So we're getting a rock block of Square Enix titles here. Good to see. For fans of RPGs, and specifically Japanese RPGs, you're going to have plenty to play over the course of the next few months.
Engaging Advent Protocol. Stabilize. Advent Protocol complete. Chain Legion.
So now we'll get to some of the big hitters, and there was perhaps nothing bigger revealed here than Super Mario Maker 2. It's coming in June, we're getting slopes, we're getting Mario 3D World visual styles and elements being brought into the game, and overall it just looks to be bigger, better and more refined than what we saw before. We'll learn a lot more about the tools and how it's all going to work with Switch functionality, I'm sure, down the line. It has to be before E3 given the June release date. But get excited, Mario Maker was a huge game, massively popular, and we can go all out there and create as many crazy levels and worlds as we like. It's going to be a great time. Dragon Quest XI Definitive Edition is coming to the Switch. That means the PS4 version that we saw last year, and I really want to get back to because I didn't put nearly enough time into it. But also, and this is where the Definitive Edition part comes in, there was a 3DS version that was released in Japan, and it allows you to play with the 3DS visuals or the old school NES, SNES sprites. And that version is coming across to the Switch as well. So you can play with this, down-resed PS4 version or this old NES, SNES style all in the one package. You can flick like that. It's going to be great. Dragon Quest XI was reviewed incredibly well last year. I want to get to more of it. This might be the best way for me to do that. There was also Dragon Quest Builders 2, a game that I'm massively anticipating. Dragon Quest Builders was one of my favourite games of the year when it came out. That's a few years ago now. But I've been super hyped for this title. I'm glad it's finally coming, and it's not far away. July 12th. We've also got Astral Chain, which comes from Platinum Games. It's an action game. It's got all the style and personality that you come to associate with a Platinum title. Check out one of the clips. I've put it in this episode. It's looking really, really cool. It's got a lot of style, a lot of personality, a lot of action, and it's going to be a great time. We just don't know when it's going to be coming out. And then finally, the real kicker here, the one that just sets some hearts and minds racing, is the fact that The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening the old Game Boy game, it's about 23 years old now, is coming to the Switch. Not a port, a full remake. Now there were some things I took from this. Firstly, it looks gorgeous. What I actually see it evoking, and the game that I feel like it's inspired by visually is actually inspired by The Legend of Zelda. Tunic. Again, it's coming to the Xbox One presumably this year. Has a very unique sort of style to it, but I saw a lot of it in the footage that I saw for Link's Awakening, the remake. Now, Nintendo marches to its own beat. They don't really look at what their competition's doing, but it's strange how those styles kind of merge and kind of cross paths there. It'll be interesting to see how the final game looks when it releases, but it's going to be a great time. Link's Awakening was a great title back in the day. Damo, who does patch with us, it's his favourite Legend of Zelda game, and there's some other big proponents for the game out there. If you never played it before, this is going to be your best chance. Now it's time for my take. And put simply, I think this is the best Nintendo Direct yet, and also tells us so much about what this year ahead is going to contain. I had a lot of concerns going into 2019 that because Nintendo had already released their big Mario game, had already released their big Zelda game, and we knew that they were starting to hire and prepare for them, but the new ones were going to be a way away. And that we then saw Mario Kart, and they're not going to put out a follow-up Mario Kart too soon, regardless of the fact that the last one was a port. And then we've just had Smash, that what was going to be left for them? So I was thinking Pikmin and all those sorts of things, and Pikmin didn't eventuate, and I'm a bit gutted about that. But then to get the announcements of Super Mario Maker 2, to get The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening, on top of all those games that I spoke about before that are presumably going to be coming this year. So that is Luigi's Mansion 3. I think Bayonetta 3 is a bit of a stretch. We know Metroid Prime 4 is definitely not coming out this year. We spoke about that in an episode a couple of weeks ago. Animal Crossing and Pokemon Gen 8. So if you think Super Mario Maker, Fire Emblem, Luigi's Mansion 3, Animal Crossing, those other things that I all said, there's about 5 or 6 of them. It is a blockbuster year for the Nintendo Switch. And that's despite the fact that they've not had to lean on their typically big hitters in a core, proper, either 2D or 3D Mario, core 3D Zelda, Mario Kart or Smash. Things are boding really well, and it's buying time for those games to actually release. This was a brilliant direct to give us a lot of perspective. And, as a standalone thing, it was wall-to-wall games. They did not skip a beat. They were giving us something new over and over and consistently, and it was amazing. Get excited for everything that Nintendo Switch is doing going forward. So that concludes this episode of The Insider. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider liking, sharing and subscribing. All those buttons are down below here, and hit that notification bell. That way you're alerted to every new video the moment it goes live on the channel. That includes Patched, The Insider, Player 2 Plays, Late Game Review, Gamer School and a whole bunch more. There's some awesome content, so please be sure to go and check it out. For written content and links to our podcast series Dev Diary and the Player 2 podcast, please be sure to visit the website player2.net.au, where you'll find reviews, previews, opinion pieces, news features, the podcasts I spoke about, and much more. There's some awesome stuff there, so please be sure to go and check it out. We're also on Patreon, patreon.com/player2au, and consider kicking in a few bucks. At the lower tiers, you get early access to episodes of this, Patched, and a whole bunch more. At the higher tiers, you get monthly episode exclusives and the ability to join us in the Player 2 podcast. Finally, for rolling updates, you can find me on Twitter at PaulJamesGames. The website you'll find at Player2au. And until next time, that has been a very large Nintendo Direct, all dissected. Check out an upcoming episode of Patched where I get Damo and Matto's thoughts on it as well. There's lots to talk about. Get hyped. I'll see you next time.